Mr. Speaker. At its core, what this amendment says is simple. After an estimated 30,000 extrajudicial killings in the Philippines between 2016 and today, after the assassinations, arbitrary arrests, torture, and red tagging of labor organizers and opposition leaders, after former President Duterte's calls for assassinating politically engaged bishops, after the Philippines has been named year after year by the International Trade Union Confederation as one of the world's 10 most repressive countries for the labor movement and workers, the time is long overdue to begin putting some basic human rights guardrails in place in the United States-Philippines relationship. I believe our policy should be built on a clear principle. Our constituents' tax dollars should not be used to supply weapons, training, or any other assistance to state security forces that violently target political opponents, including a United States citizen, Brandon Lee, a human rights activist who was shot by state security forces in 2019 and remains paralyzed from the chest down today as a result of that attack. Brandon deserves to know that his government stands with him, not with his attackers. I have made this point to the Trump administration, and I am making it to the Biden administration. If we in the United States are going to say that we stand for human rights around the world, then we need to stand for human rights around the world, not just when it's politically convenient and not just when it's easy. Is it too much to ask that our country put some modest conditions on arming and assisting the security forces of an authoritarian government waging war on its own people? Is it too much to ask that our government side with workers and the labor movement here at home and around the world, with faith and religious leaders, with human rights activists and dissidents who are simply trying to build a free society? Those who oppose this amendment will claim that providing uncritical, unconditional assistance to the Philippines, regardless of the war its government is waging against its own population, is critical for our national security objective of countering China. But the need to counter the Chinese regime's authoritarianism on the international stage is precisely why it's so important that we maintain our credibility on human rights. It's why it's so vital that we do not undermine our own case for democracy and open ourselves up to charges of hypocrisy by supporting brutal regimes out of short-term political expediency. Let's pass this amendment and send a resounding signal to the world that we are prepared to make respect for human rights a cornerstone of U.S. foreign policy rather than an empty slogan that we yield arbitrarily. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I reserve.
Gentlewoman reserves.